So welcome to Purdue at Westgate's first Tuesday event. If you haven't been here before, my name is Samantha Nelson and I'm the program manager for Purdue at Westgate here at the Westgate Academy. I'm so excited to be hosting this from the new Silicon Crossroads Collaboration Center, which houses the Microelectronics Hub. For some of you that weren't aware, this space has been unfinished since 2012. I have been here since day one of this building, and I have seen this be empty forever. So it's so exciting to see exactly what it was meant to be since 2012. So we want to make sure that we talk about this was supposed to be an incubator space, an incubator type space. So it seems very fitting that the most advanced research and collaborative connections will be taking place right here in this room. So great job, Brooke and team. I'm not going to give an introduction to these guys. I think they're going to do well by themselves, and I think a lot of you know them. But we have 5 presenters tonight that will be speaking about ARI's innovation framework for national security and defense, and how collaborating with industry, government, and academia drive economic development and regional growth by increasing the awareness of opportunities, as well as exposing member expertise and product to the government customer. I am going to introduce you to Brooke Pine, Brett Hamilton, Matt Burkett, Jalen Rollins, and Courtney Baker.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I greatly appreciate it. And welcome, welcome, welcome. You guys are literally the second group, the other group was here yesterday, that we've had in this space. And as Samantha said, it's kind of sit here for a long time. We won't talk about how long, until there was there was a vision we were able to pull in and really unify this place that, I'm not kidding you, had one plug-in before we did all this in this massive area. Not ideal to do collaboration. So we're very excited about the space. We're very excited about a lot of activity that's going on here at ARI with the ecosystem partners that we have. Going to take you on a little journey, hence why we have 5 speakers that all reside here at ARI, most of them within my vertical as the EVP of Strategy and Innovation at ARI. One not necessarily in my vertical, but he won't need an intro. He's well known within this national network of microelectronics. But with that said, we're going to quickly take you through a look at who ARI is, but then also take you to, that did not work, did it? All right, you back on controlling this? Okay, thank you. Share a little bit about ARI, the strategy, but then also talk to you about a couple of ecosystems we support. We support about 13 ecosystems. We're going to showcase 2 of those. And then we're also going to talk about a couple of innovation enablers, a couple of programmatic type innovation things that we do here within the state of Indiana that then cut across all 13 of those ecosystems to really create innovation churn that we have. So ARI, who is ARI? ARI is a nonprofit institute. What we do, and the best way to kind of summarize it, is we help build a framework to orchestrate innovation. That means various different things, but think about what all different components are needed to really make innovation happen. It's not only a diverse member set of federal government, of academics, of entrepreneurs, of defense primes. It's also funding feeders, VC studios that we are actually creating for the Silicon Crossroads Hub, which again is the collaboration center that you're sitting in. So you kind of get back to that entire innovation framework, pulling all of those units together and really trying to have them go after a common mission, supporting mainly technology areas that are really driven here or in the DNA of the Midwest or Indiana, but some of it is very much customer driven as well. We'll kind of show you a sneak peek of what those mean. Next slide, please. This is that sneak peek that I talked about. So you can see across, and this is an eye chart, so I'm going to walk you through it a little bit to give you some background on ARI. Across the top, you have 8 technology areas. Those are technology areas that are really rooted and a part of our heritage. here in the Midwest, but also in Indiana. So then what you have in the gray line is public-private partnerships. You will also hear those called P3s that have actually been stood up here in the state of Indiana to support innovation in each one of those areas. We support all of those P3s here in the state of Indiana. In fact, the CEO of the BIC, Les Alexander, if you have not met him, he's fantastic. He's actually on my team as well. So we support all of those across that vector for those P3s, helping drive that innovation and the ecosystem within the state of Indiana. Then if you go down to the green one, those are hubs. So you've probably heard a lot of people talk about innovation that the federal government is executing, and you hear them call them a hub. It's very similar to a consortium, very similar to a member-driven ecosystem, all kind of the same thing. Hub is kind of the name of the day, and you'll see a funding across those. So here at ARI, we have actually recently, when I say recently, probably in the last 18, 12 months, pursued some very strategic and focused hub opportunities. Out of the three, we won all three for the state of Indiana. Massive win. I think we should just stop there because we're batting 1,000, but that's not quite how it's going to go. But out of those hubs, we will talk about, we'll dive into Silicon Crossroads, but I also want to talk about the Midwest Hydrogen Corridor Coalition. This is a hub out of the Department of Energy around hydrogen energy. And it is a partnership with 3 states, Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. And it too is very much run across the same innovation framework that we have here at ARI that we deploy into those ecosystems. So that's one out of the Department of Energy. Then you'll see the next one, Heartland Bioworks. This one is actually out of the EDA. And it is focused on what is called regional tech hubs. And it's really about utilizing part of the CHIPS Plus Science Act funding that was focused on developing these regional innovation hubs where there is innovation pockets, and really how do you enhance those. Those had unlimited technology areas to look at. And here in the state of Indiana, we went after biotech manufacturing. And we won that hub. Now, what's nice about biotech manufacturing is when you start talking about the foundational aspects of manufacturing, it crosses to the same manufacturing that we're doing for microelectronics and chips, the same manufacturing we're doing for BIC. So now we're able to unite a lot of the workforce development efforts that we're doing as well across those ecosystems, because we kind of have a bird's eye view of all of these different ecosystems. So now we can unite these and get a much higher ROI across the board. Then we have Silicon Crossroads. Of course, that's the one that I've mentioned several times. It was a part of the Microelectronics Commons effort that was in the CHIPS money. It was the first $2 billion that hit the streets after President Biden signed into law the CHIPS Act of the $54 billion to really onshore microelectronics into the country to address a national security need. It was the first one on the street, and it was the first one awarded. And it funded 8 national level hubs to actually create a national hub network to leverage and drive capability increase, innovation, churn to support that national security need or requirement. And we are one of 8 of those hubs. Again, this was a partnership with Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan with some very, very strong stakeholders to really support that effort. We are still in the churn, and I'll let Brett's going to actually deep dive a lot of the specifics on what's going on within that hub, but a lot of really great activity being generated and focused within that hub. Then we have some customer-driven ecosystems that we support. That includes the Midwest Tech Bridge that is here out of NSWC Crane that we support through APIA. Very similar activity though. Supporting the ecosystem, bring people into Crane, help drive innovation, help drive those opportunity alignments, help drive teaming collisions. Very similar activities. Then we have the next 2 Those are those enablers I mentioned a while ago. So we have IVGs, and it's called the Innovation Voucher Program that actually Courtney is going to cover here in a bit. And then the Inform series is one of my favorites, rooted in SBIR, STTR from my early days at Crane that I worked as well. We support that entire program for the state of Indiana to include education, matching grants, commercialization grants, and pursuit opportunities within that program as well. And Mr. Matt Burkett will cover that here in a bit. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I really wanted to put up, I showed you a real quick flash of all those ecosystems that we support. But keep in mind, to get those ecosystems to work in unity and to drive commonality, the framework that we have and the best practices get deployed across all 13 of those. So again, we're able to bring members to bear. We're able to cross-pollinate them much easier because once you work in one of our ecosystems, you don't have to relearn how to work in another. They're kind of all ran with similar philosophies and methodologies. And what we have found is when you really create an innovation framework that drives open collaboration in a trusted environment, absolutely key. I would make that all caps. With a diverse member set, you get highly collaborative environments, enriching engagements. We get a massive amount of innovation churn. And why is that important? Because innovation churn forces ideas on paper that oftentimes doesn't get on paper, that then drives us to a portfolio that we can share with VCs, that we can share with other program offices within the federal government, and the other customer set that we support across our ecosystems. Because of the quality of the output of our innovation, because of this churn, we actually have program offices that come to us and say, okay, we're looking for a technology, something like this. Do you have anything in your portfolio? Because they know we vet very well, and they know that we drive to a quality output. So because of that churn, we are bringing that type of funding opportunities into the state of Indiana and into the Midwest for all of our members and all of our innovators that function within this framework. Next slide, please. So now I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Brett Hamilton. Many of you that have been in this area before or been around Crane, there's no stranger to this national treasure. And it is absolutely an honor that we have him on our staff and that he was able to join us and really drive a lot of the microelectronics strategy and a lot of the microelectronics technical innovation that is going on within the Silicon Crossroads Hub.
Thanks, Brooke. So as Brooke alluded to, the Silicon's Crossroads hubs were awarded last year. So the project kicked off. The first solicitation, the RFS that came out, was for the hubs themselves. There was a down select, one of 8 regional hubs selected. At that time, they didn't award any projects, but when we submitted for the hub, we included 5 exemplar projects in each of the 6 tech areas. And I'll get into those 6 tech areas in a minute. But those were used to generate the call for projects that was released right before Christmas and due in February. We received 38 projects in that call for projects, and these were full, big blown proposals. So it was a lot of effort for the proposers to put those together. We received 38. We had to down select to 15 that we submitted to the government, and we should hear any day now which ones are going to be funded. So we're hopefully optimistic that we can get our fair share of those. We are participating in all 6 of the tech areas that I'll show you in a minute. But just from an overview of the hub, that initial hub award was $32 million. That included hub operations, infrastructure. So there's some of our partners requested and received funding for specific equipment that aided in the manufacturing process, and then also workforce development. A pretty large portion for workforce development. We have 225 members at this time. And one of the questions that they ask us, the government loves to do their data calls. One of them was, what's the estimated hub value? Well, we have hub members like Intel Corporation. So how can you say what is the value of the core members? So we did our best guess and said about 10.3 billion plus the core members. So this 10 billion is just the regional, the universities, all the regional non-cores. And the definition of a core in the RFS is that they have manufacturing capabilities. So it has to be, they have to be able to actually produce something. The other thing that we were very pleased with is the distribution of our members. You can see we have a full mix, academia, small business, traditional and non-traditional. And one of the things that we emphasized when the projects were putting their teams together is you need to include all those. You need to have an academic partner. You need to have a defense industrial based partner for transition. You need to have a commercial partner for commercial transition, because as you all know, many of you in this room, one of the big problems that DoD has is they're very low volume. So they don't buy that many, how many F-35s or how many aircraft carriers. So the volume compared to commercial is really low. And generally for a microelectronic component, it's not enough to really justify a unique design. The NRE is just too high. You can compare to something like an iPhone. Apple sells hundreds of millions of chips. So the economics is not there. So the ideal situation is to have a dual use technology that DoD can really leverage in their systems and maybe have some extra insight into the capabilities of that, or pair it with a spatial sensor or something like that. Okay, next slide. So this is a bit of an eye chart. I won't go through it. I've seen Brooke give this briefing and she can spend a half hour on that top part alone, but it just kind of shows the ecosystem that you go from our 6 technical areas, and then you go through this innovation and orchestration process. And each one of these is very critical to get to the outcome. Like I mentioned, dual use, DIB adoption, or intentional tech development, or IP that could be used for other things. Here's a list of our cores. I think that's pretty up to date. Like I said, we continuously get members. We don't have any restrictions. Anybody can join at any time. You can see we have a lot of the really big, NVIDIA is a member of our hub. I've had several talks with them, and Intel, lots of big companies. One of them, I don't know if they're on this one, SK Hynix, who just made the big announcement up in West Lafayette that they're going to be doing a manufacturing facility there for advanced packaging. So teaming with those commercial partners is really key. Okay. So these are the 6 technology areas that I mentioned. There's a whole section in the call for topics on each one of these, but basically the way they did it is they described a desired end state and an entry maturity level and an exit material level. And so one thing to keep in mind is this is not a research and development project. These have to be at a TR level 3 or 4 to begin with, and with a target of 5 to 7 at the end. And the technologies are secure edge and IoT computing. There, the focus is really on how can we reduce the size, weight, and performance for things like autonomous vehicles, sensors, things that's out in an environment where you have those restrictions, but very importantly, add security. A lot of low-cost devices that are connected up to the internet have really poor security. So that's really the goal of that one. AR hardware, a lot of overlap between this one and this one because we want to put AI out at the edge. So this is not your big, server farm that's doing the machine learning. This is more for inferencing, just so it's going to be out in the platforms. 5G, 6G, it's a big topic now in DoD. How can they leverage that technology? How can they look for other communications in a denied environment? It's a big problem. If you start thinking about having swarms of drones and all that, having them to be able to communicate is absolutely critical. And if you lose those communications, so a lot of effort going into that one. Probably the most researchy one is quantum. And in this one, for these projects, the scale was really more for things like quantum sensors, like magnetometers or GPS, PNT, things like that. Not really quantum computers because those are much bigger scale efforts, but a lot of the technology transitions over. Brooke mentioned that we have the 3 states in our hub. Illinois is really big in quantum. The University of Illinois, Fermi Labs there, University of Chicago, and the state has put a lot of money into it. So they're a driving force in the quantum. Commercial leap aheads, a bit of a hodgepodge catch-all for a lot of different things. CMOS PluxX, what that really means is you've got a piece of CMOS silicon and you want to put some other material on it, like MRAM memory or a sensor or something like that. So it's a back-end line process on top of CMOS. That's a very popular one. And one of the main applications of that is actually AI. So again, there's overlap between some of these. And then the last one is electromagnetic warfare, pretty self-explanatory. This one is definitely the most DoD focused because most of the technology in this doesn't have commercial applications, although there is a lot of overlap, particularly in high frequency RF between these two. So, okay. And then the last part is the workforce development. And when we looked at workforce development on this, we accepted solicitations from lots of different folks on that. And what we really were happy, the results is it really covers the spectrum. So we have projects from K through 12, clear up through master's and PhD. And that's really critical because you need it all. And there's always been a focus, it seems to me, like kind of more up in here, like internships and things like that. Lots of sponsoring people to go get their PhD. But I mentioned the manufacturing that's coming up to West Lafayette. Those jobs are really more down in here. They're highly skilled technical people. And I watched most of the webinars from the CHIPS programs office, and that's a big concern. That's a huge concern because if the government is investing 39 billion of that 52 billion CHIPS money for domestic manufacturing. So if you've been following the announcements, it's Intel, Global Foundries, TSMC, Samsung, and Micron are building huge factories in the US. And they're going to need, I think the last number I heard, something like 60,000 skilled technical workers. These are the kinds of workers that are competing with HVAC, all the other infrastructure stuff that every business needs. And Brooke mentioned overlap between biotech manufacturing and semiconductor manufacturing. Very similar kinds of environments, clean rooms, advanced robotics, and all that kind of stuff. So, we're lucky here in the state. Our community college system is a state, and they do a really good job of, networking compared to a state where they're all a whole bunch of individual ones. I think that's a big, huge advantage. Okay. Is that it? All right. I don't even know who's next.
as we get prepped with the slides on who next, actually, I think it's going to be Jalen to talk about the Midwest Tech Bridge. A couple really quick things. Workforce development, we have a couple of the Ivy Tech folks in the room. They received a $2 million workforce development grant or contract from the Silicon Crossroads Hubs to build a microelectronics training center here. Purdue also was a recipient of a few $1 million to actually do some workforce development as well, and then onward. So again, really driving those dollars into the local kind of community to really make sure we become the destination of choice on microelectronics. I call it the Midwest Microelectronics Movement. I hope it sticks. So just remember that. And one last thing real quick, when Brett had that process slide up there, the one that he said I could talk on for 30 minutes, which he's correct. There is a portion in there that was called an ideation event. For those of you in the room that are members, that ideation event is in 2 weeks. If you haven't signed up, please do so. It is free of charge event to any of our members and any of our community stakeholders. If you are not a member, it's not too late. Membership too is free. So why not, right? And that event is actually the event that will start the ideation churn on the topics that we will be submitting to the federal government for consideration for the upcoming project call on where they will be investing their dollars. It is your voice going into that topic call. So please, if you're a member or if you're in the area and are working microelectronics in any type of application, please let us know, and please come join us at the ideation event. With that, it is Mr. Matt Burkett.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Burkett. As you can see, my title's Director of Innovation Pathways. My partner here, Jalen Rollins, and I are going to just quickly brief you on the Midwest Tech Bridge. So Brooke was talking about ecosystems that we support here at ARI, the Midwest Tech Bridge being one of those prominent ecosystems that we do support. So next slide, please. So here's just an overall organizational overview, so you can kind of get an idea of where Naval X and the Tech Bridge, where they fall in line, and then how do we at ARI support that mission. So as you can see, you've got the big parent up front, NAVC. So that's NSWC Crane. That's who they report to. That's kind of the mothership there, and below that, you've got Naval X, which Naval X spans all across the Navy, and that's where the Midwest Tech Bridge, as you can see, is located. So where does ARI play a support role? So as Brooke mentioned earlier, we act as that PIA partner, so that partnership intermediary agreement partner. So what do we do through the PIA to support Crane, Naval X, and more specifically, the Midwest Tech Bridge? So as Jalen will get into kind of the specifics, but broadly, we help with, events, connections. Jalen will talk about some more of the kind of the back end technical support that we can provide. But again, Naval X and their mission to support the warfighter and their mission to support the Navy, we play that prominent role as kind of that ecosystem support in support of the Tech Bridge. So now, to get into some of those specifics, I'm going to pass it off to my partner, Mr. Jalen Rollins.
Thank you, Matt. So I won't go through all of these, but kind of the four main pillars that the Tech Bridge focuses on is super connector, strategic events, the innovation pipeline champions, and then strategic facilitation. So a couple that I did want to focus on is tech scanning, which I have a slide here in a minute to deep dive that. Having access to a tech scanning tool with millions of data points on different companies. Using that really to find unique and new companies that maybe the government hasn't worked with in the past. And then the Tech Bridge is present at several different events and conferences throughout the year. One of the main ones being the Hypersonic Innovation Conference, which just happened in Dayton. So the big one that I think is one of the cool ones is the tech scanning. So the Joint Hypersonic Transition Office came to us probably 6 months ago looking for new, unique companies to propose on a prize challenge they were having. So we took about, what, a week or two, Matt, and worked with our tech scanning dashboard that we have. We found about 600 plus companies within those criteria that the government gave us. Out of that, we did a targeted event with about 200 people that registered. And then out of that 200, they actually received 49 proposals for solutions towards that challenge. I think that's it, Matt. Is that the last one? Yeah. Brooke is missing. But anyways, I can transition to the next one. So the next person is Courtney Baker, colleague of mine. She helps run the Innovation Voucher Grant Program, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Yes. So the Innovation Voucher Grants are a state initiative, and they're actually one of the newer programs that ARI has. And the focus of an Innovation Voucher is it's a $50,000 matching grant, and we want to focus on those small businesses to spur them into commercialization. We want to be that springboard so that they can fill that financial gap that they may have when trying to work with a university or research institute in the state of Indiana. It can be really expensive to bridge that gap. So just like the tech transfers, and we're in Silicon Crossroads, and all of our hubs are trying to speed up advanced technology and really spur innovation in these early emerging technology areas. The Innovation Voucher Grants are doing that as well. It's not technology specific though, so we can pull from the different hubs and the different opportunities that ARI is already running. And we can say, hey, have you heard about an innovation voucher? Are you working with the university? Are you trying to? And we can get them connected through all of our ecosystems that we have and really explode their research into something really interesting, and keeping them in the state of Indiana. So it is IEDC money that's coming through, and I am the one managing the projects that come through. So who is eligible? You do have to be a small business, and you do have to be in Indiana. That's less than 150 people working at your company, and then have a high growth potential. So if there are projects that these small businesses are working on that can bring more jobs and more revenue to the state of Indiana, that gives them an even greater chance to win these awards. We currently have about 47 projects that we're managing, and then we just had our last cohort deadline about 2 weeks ago, and we had 23 new applications. And with that, we're hoping to get it looks like about half of those to get awarded in the next coming weeks. And then the other thing is you do have to be working with an eligible research organization. So that is typically a university. We've had a lot with Purdue and IU. We even have one with Ball State, a couple with Rose-Hulman. And then there's a lot of different, we have one with USI, which is the new one that we just got, which is really exciting that we have a lot of diversity in the universities working with these companies. You can also work with a nonprofit research institute. So that could be the 5G lab with 912. We've had some with the Sports Tech HQ, which is also another one of the ecosystems that we manage, as well as the BIC. We work closely with them. We've had a couple applications with them as well. And then the specific deliverables that you're working on, having a clear goal to really spur that company into commercialization. We want to help them bridge that gap as much as possible. So with that, short and sweet for you, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Okay, you get me a little more of me. I'm sorry about that. So again, Matt Burkett, Director of Innovation Pathways, kind of playing off what Brooke had talked about earlier when she talked about the ecosystems and then mentioned some of those enablers. So Courtney talked about the first enabler, which is the Innovation Voucher Grant Program. I'm going to talk about a second enabler, which is the Inform series, or all things SBIR, STTR. So the Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So that's a federal program that has 11 participating agencies involved in the SBIR program. Then you've got the largest 6 of those 11 that play in the STTR program. So the difference between the two is in order to propose on an SBIR or STTR, it has to be done by a small business. Okay, a small business in this realm is determined by businesses with 500 employees or less. The STTR requires you to have a university partner to a certain extent. So that's really the difference between the two. If you're a small business and you're playing an SBIR, you can go at it alone. You don't need any help. If you want it, feel free to go get it. But with the STTR, it does require you to work with a university partner. So when we took this program over in September of 23, we were thinking about, how do we spread the word? How do we get more Indiana businesses engaged in the SBIR program? How do we share that message? And then talk about some of the support services that we can offer. So we kind of created and launched the Inform series, and that's kind of a word salad there. I'm not going to read it to you, but essentially what we're trying to do is bring people together, whether that be in person, virtually, and then talk about, like Brooke mentioned, talk about some of those educational things. Try to provide information to Indiana businesses that may not know about the program and might be interested, or try to help those businesses that have been interested over the years and try to provide them some targeted support to help them get across the finish line there. So that's really what we're trying to do. We push content out typically on a monthly basis. We're getting a little bit more frequent with that content. But one thing to kind of put a bug in your ear before we move to the next slide, when we're talking about events, collisions, education, July 16th in Indianapolis, the SBA is having their national bus tour. They're making a stop in Indianapolis. So what that tells me is that we've been successful with the SBIR program. I think nationally people are starting to recognize there's a lot of innovation going on in the state. So not every state gets a stop. So we were fortunate enough to be one of those stops. So July 16th in Indianapolis. If you're interested, that's a great opportunity for you to meet one-on-one with those government program managers that are involved in the program, and then learn from past winners and different ways that ARI can support you and your business along that SBIR journey. So next slide, Jalen. So what are the support services that we offer through ARI to help you, the business? So there are four main things, one of them being topic identification. So you're new to SBIR, you're not sure which agency of those 11 buy what you sell. We can assist you with that topic identification. So we can sit down with you. We have consultants that we reach back to that we can connect you with on a one-on-one basis. And you can start to narrow down the number of agencies that you might want to work with. Second thing is proposal assistance. So oftentimes for small business, you guys have great ideas. You can do the work. It's the proposal submission back to the government that's a challenge. And we recognize that. So again, we can reach back to those consultants and provide you some proposal assistance to help you put your best foot forward when you do indeed submit to the government. Third thing being support letters. So these are, depending on the agency that you respond to as part of your proposal submission, they may want a support letter. We can provide you that support letter from ARI. And then lastly, the one I probably get the most questions about or the most interest in is the phase 1 and phase 2 matching fund. So for those that aren't familiar with SBIR, it's a 3-phase program. Phase 1 is a feasibility study. So it's kind of a science project, initial white paper. Phase 2, you're starting to move into a prototype. So you're building on what was done in phase 1. You're hopefully having a prototype at the end of this. And then phase 3 is where you move into commercialization, and that's where you get into the larger government contracts at that point. But what we can do is help you with phase 1 and phase 2 matching. So what's that look like? So for phase 1, we can provide 50 cents on the dollar up to $50,000 for any successful SBIR award you have. So we can do that 3 times over the life of your business. And for phase 2, we can offer you 50 cents on the dollar up to $75,000, and we can do that twice over the life of your business. So one thing to note, like I said, when we took this over in September, the phase 2 funding used to be, if you wanted to receive matching funds, it was a convertible note, which that's gone out the window now. So right now, what we offer through the state is non-dilutive matching grant funds. So what do you need in order to receive that? I need a copy of your successful award that is outside of 90 days from completion. So if you're inside 90 days of completion, I can't help you anymore. But if you're outside of that, I can help you. And the other thing is I need a copy of your proposal. Once that's in place, we can put a grant agreement in place with you, the business, and hopefully provide you those matching funds to hopefully help you move more toward commercialization. Is that it? And with that, appreciate your time. I'm going to pass it back over to Brooke for some closing comments.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Thank you so much. I know we're pretty much at time. The food's getting set up. I don't want to stand between food and drinks and everyone else, but hopefully we were able to paint a picture for you, a picture of ARI ecosystem management and orchestration, example of 2 of the 13 ecosystems we support, and then also bring in some of those innovation enablers that we lead for the state of Indiana and actually help invest in. So that was the intent. So hopefully that's the case. The crew over here is going to hang around. If you have any questions, let us know. Use the QR code to connect with us and join us on the innovation journey. Thank you.
Can you all come up? I'll come up and stand. So, I think we need to give a round of applause for all of them. Thank you. I have to say that I have never seen a team that works so hard and so intensely. They are here way before I am in the morning, and I'm an early riser, and they're here way when anybody is gone. So they deserve all of this recognition because they have worked so hard, and I just see on the surface of it. So I'm so excited and happy that they are here. I'm happy that they could share the space with everybody. So thank you. I think that we are all here at the Westgate Tech Park, NSWC, DOD, in the region. We're so lucky to have this team chosen to be the one that's running this initiative. So thank you. This is being recorded, and a copy of the slides we can provide you as well. Anybody that actually RSVP'd will automatically get the copy of the slides and the recording. If you haven't, let me know. We can get you on a list. We can get it. It'll also be on the Westgate Academy website. So you can go on the westgateacademy.com and watch it on there too, or get the slides on there. Also, there's other events that we do here. Obviously, the first Tuesday of the month we do, but we will not be doing it in July because of the holiday. So please don't come in July. I'd rather not turn you away. And I may be having a drink somewhere, but it won't be here. So we'll pick it back up in August, but thank you all for coming very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for doing what you're doing. And it's events like this that's going to help showcase the impact that they are doing. Brooke had mentioned earlier that is so hard to tell people and to explain people what they're doing and how they're doing it and where they're going with it. But as she mentioned, it is events like this that showcase and educate what's moving forward and what the growth is going to be. So please continue to ask them questions, provide them information on yourself so that they can understand who is here and what they need to help with too. So let's all have some food and drink by Cedar Hill Catering, by the way, out of Bedford. So thank you all.